So the Gemara had a pasuk of Bala Sharnaki. We ended up learning from the fact that it says Sokol Yisokol Ashar that it's Aser V'Achila. V'lo Ye'achalas B'Sara. It teaches us both that it's Aser B'Hana and that even if you shechted it, it's Aser B'Achila. And Bala Sharnaki is going to teach us some extra halachas. Tanya Idach. We have a brisa that says Bala Sharnaki. Yosy Yosy says, "Naki midmei v'ladois." In other words, Rashi says, if Nagach has isha v'yatzul yeladah, if it stoys a woman and she miscarried because of it, the shor does not have to pay the mei v'ladois. Amalei Rabbi Kiva. So Rabbi Kiva told Rabbi Yosy clearly, why do I need to use Ubala Shar Naki to tell me that? I can figure it out minei ubei from the pasuk that discusses the mei v'ladois. Hareyo Aimer ki yinotu anoshim. So it says in the pasuk, "Ki anoshim v'nakfu ishahara." It doesn't say that oxen were doing this. So it's mashma that this halacha of paying for v'ladois does not apply to shvarim. Zok the Gemara shaper ka'amar Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva has a good taina. Why does Rabbi Yosy really need ubal sharnaki? We're just talking about shar nizkal, which has nothing to do with the parsha of the Mevladois. We're just using this extra word to teach us that we have a pasuk Munei Bay that says Ki yinochu anoshim v'lo shvar. Thank you so much, Monty. Appreciate it. Rabbi Kiva Aimer, I was a little late today, but at least I put up the water. Thank you so much. Okay. Zok to Gemara. Amalei Rabbi Kiva, halayu oimer ki yinochu anoshim v'lo shvar. So why do I need Ubala Sharnaki to tell us that? The Gemara Shaper Kamer Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva has a very good argument. Why taka? Can't we just learn it directly from the pasuk? Omar Vula Berei Davidi Istrich. We still need Ubala Sharnaki because we wouldn't have all the information that we need from the pasuk of Ki yinochu anoshim. Because Sakadaita Chamina anoshim v'lo shvarim hadoimin lanoshim. What type of shvarim are being excluded from the pasuk Ki yinochu anoshim? Oxen that are doimer to anoshim, meaning muadim. Ma anoshim muadim, just like a person is always a muad. So to the shvarim that we're comparing to anoshim to say that don't pay the mei v'ladois are muadim. Hatam, if it was a short tam, which is not comparable to an adam, maybe a tam would be chayiv on the mei v'ladois. Chazer Rachmana Bala Sharnaki, the potter that even a tam is potter from the mei v'ladois. On that, Rava said, that makes no sense at all. The people who are residents, the people who are citizens, they have to live far away. And the refugees are going to live in their houses. I know in America, that's how it works nowadays, is that they're giving precedence to refugees. They're evicting veterans and they're evicting normal people who need housing from their houses. They're giving them to refugees. But according to the Gemara, and according to any person with a half a brain, that is totally illogical. Yitziva ba'ara v'giyura b'shmei shemaya ella amar rava itzrich. This is why you need ubala sharnaki. So kedayta chamina anoshim v'lo shvarim hadoim lanosh. Man moshem u'adim. Shor mu'adim, which would mean that a shor hamuad that damages v'lodim, that kills v'lodim, will be potter. The kavachomer l'tam and the ptiri. Kavachomer at shor tam that killed v'lodim, kavachomer they should be potter. Hadar kazav rachmana bala sharnaki. Therefore, the Torah repeats bala sharnaki to tell us that tam potter umuad chayiv. Tam is potter and umuad chayiv. Amalei Abaye. Once you're telling me that Ubala Sharnaki is not telling us any halacha directly related to Shar Niskal, and it's referring to some other halacha in the Torah, well, let it apply to the Chiyav Boishis as well. Nemahaki. Anoshim v'lo svarim. Because by the Parsha of Boishis, what does the Pasuk say? Kabe Boishis nami Rashi, the Kaim alone Shoyrei Shabayish Potter. We learned in the Mishnah that a shar that is mavai somebody, there is no chiyuv for the owner of that shar to pay boishes. V'nafkalon, how did the Gemara learn this halacha? From the pasuk that talks about boishes. The pasuk that talks about boishes says, "Chiyinatu anoshim yachtov ish v'achiv v'kirva eishes ish." And that was a case of boishes. Because so says kavim mamain, brand new boishes. So why don't you say the same thing? Why don't you say something? Anoshim v'lo shvarim, hadoim anoshim. Ma anoshim mu'adin, av shvarim mu'adin. What type of oxen are potter from boishes? An oxen to moyed, a mu'ad. The kalvachomer l'tamin, the ptiri. And kalvachomer tamin will be potter. And then you have a bala sharnoki to tell you how the cause of Rachman and bala sharnoki to tell us that tam potter umu'ad chayiv. So the same way you want to make an argument that a tam should be potter and a mut should be chayiv on Demei V'lados, so too a tam should be potter and a mut should be chayiv on boishes. And if you're going to say en chanami, maybe a mut does pay boishes. So tomorrow, if that was the case, yihachi listni bal ashar noki. What it should have said is when Rabbi Yosy Gluli said it's halacha, he should have said bal ashar noki. Rabbi Yosy Gluli Aimer. Because the same drasha of Bala Sharnaki is applying equally to Dmei Vlados and to Boishes. Ella Abaye Varava, the Amitar value. Because of that, we have to change the whole approach. We have to change the whole approach. And we have to say, Anoshim ein asan b'isha yeyanchu. So the diak that we're going to make is Anoshim dafka by Anoshim. Do you say a halacha of kamle b'derabimne? And therefore, ein asan b'isha. If the woman doesn't get killed, then yeyanshu, then they have to pay for the dmei v'ladais. But yesh asan b'isha, and therefore there's a chiv misa. Lo yeyanshu, then they don't pay for the dmei v'ladais because it's kamle b'derabimne. This applies only if a person does this. But if it's an ox that killed v'ladais, the avog of the yesh asain, even if the woman does get killed, they still have to pay for the mevlados, because there is no din of kamle with the rabbi minei. Therefore, the Torah writes balasharnaki the potter that tells you that an animal is potter from the mevlados. That svara already wouldn't be applicable to the case of boishes, and therefore it's the Uvala Sharnaki is going to be used exclusively to tell you that an animal that kills vlados does not have to pay for the Demei Vlados. Gewaltig. So to Gemara weiter. Matzke Flo Rav Adabrav. Fragt Rav Adabrav, once again this verse is not good. Otuba also in Tolya Milsa. It has nothing to do with whether or not there's an asoin. It has nothing to do. The chiyuv of the man to pay vlados is not totally in whether or not the woman gets killed or not. Because Tolya Milsa. Zokt Rashi, even if the woman was killed, not necessarily is there a chiyuv misa here. So therefore, yeyanchu, they would have to pay for the dmei vladis anyways. When would that be? What if the man was trying to punch his friend? He was fighting with his friend, and he swung, and instead he hit the woman. So he killed her, but he killed her shaloi b'kavana. There, he would be chayiv to pay for the dmei vladis, because there's no chiv misa there. Now we learned a couple of days ago that there's something called chayiv misa shoygogin, right? If it's something that could lead to a chiv misa, even if at this particular case there's no chiv misa, there's still a din of kamle b'drabim. So Rashi, this Gemara is not following Chizkiah. The Svir Lila Rav Ada, Rav Shimon. Rav Ada Bar Ava over here holds like Rav Shimon, not like Rav Chizkiah. The Yom of Mesechas Sanhedrin, the Eilu Heinan Nisrafim, Nischaven Lahar Gazeh V'Har Gazeh. What if somebody wanted to kill Reuven and then he ended up killing Shimon? So even though Shimon died and he had kavanah to kill somebody, Pater Mimisa, because the intent of the murderer was not to kill Reuven. And therefore, v'chayiv mammon. And therefore, if there's any chayiv mammon over there as well, he'll be chayiv because you don't take kamli b'drabim because he's not going to be chayiv misa. The less lay the ton of the very Chizkiah, Rabbi Barava and Shimon do not hold like Chizkiah, like we learned a couple of days ago. The Omar lechalakta boy bein mischaben l'shein mischaben l'chayiv mammon. Never will he be chayiv. Elapoiter mammon. He will always be potter, even though the action that he did that was the chayiv misa didn't actually come with a chiv misa. It was only of the type of avera that could have a chiv misa. And therefore, v'lo asan dekra b'chaverai kadarishli. And if you learn v'lo asan dekra, it's b'chaverai kadarishli, meaning if the person here, you have a guy who's aiming for Reuven and he punched this pregnant lady, she dies and her vladis die. The halach is he's chayav for everything because he's not dying, according to Reb Shimon. So what does it mean v'lo asan? The asan is if he killed his friend. So let's say he was aiming for Reuven and he hit Reuven, and somehow in the process he also damaged the vladis. There is where we say that he'd be put on to vladis, because only there will there be an actual chiv misa. So when the Torah says he only pays for the vladis if there's no asan, that doesn't mean if there's no asan on the woman, because even if there is an asan on the woman, he's still going to pay the vladis because he's not actually chayav misa. V'lo yasa means if his friend doesn't get killed, because if his friend got killed, then there is a kom leib b'dirabim. I'm sorry. If his friend doesn't get killed, then he's chayiv. Even if the lady gets killed, but his friend didn't get killed, so there's no chiyav misa, because the only person who there would be a chiyav misa for would be the person that he was aiming for, which would have been his friend. And therefore, the kivan da noshim ahechad yesh asain nami yayanshu. Even though, when it comes to a person killing vladois, he will be mechuyev to pay for the vladois, even if there wasn't asain but isha. Ishtakach the image shvarim. So now you could be memayit shvarim from the chiyuv to pay for the vladois. Bein b'yesh asain, bein b'isha. Bein b'yesh asain, bein b'she'ein asain, uval hasharnaki lamali. So once again, we don't need baal hasharnaki. So zok the Gemara again. Anoshim, only by anoshim do we say if it's a noshim b'isha yanshu, but yesh ashan b'isha, and if there is a noshim in the isha, lo yanshu, but lo shvarim, but not oxen. The avagav the yesh ashan, even if there is an ashan, yanshu they still pay because there is no chiyuv, misa there at all. So therefore, maybe the animal should always have to pay the mevlados. How the cause of the potter. There you have, so for that you have the pasuk of Bala Sharnaki to tell you that an animal is always potter from the mevlados. Matzkel rather Bava. Also, but also tell you milsa, but it's not telling us. It's bichavana tell you milsa. It's bichavana, as we just said here, that it all depends on if he had kavanah to kill the person that died or not, right? So therefore, Rashi says, a person, even if a woman dies, he would still be mechuyev. The image svarim ben biyash ben bein asan. So from the pasuk we know that an animal will never be mechuyev. From the pasuk we know that an animal will never ever be mechuyev in the mevlados. So why do you need a pasuk for? Ela amar Rav Ada bar Ava. Anoshim kinis chavnu zelazeh by anoshim when they had kavanah to kill each other. Afal gav sheyesh asain the even though the woman dies and there was no kavanah to kill the woman, yayanshu they will have to pay because there's no kavanah but Rabbi Minei according to Rabbi Shimon. Nevertheless, kinis chavnu leishatz if they had kavanah to kill the isha herself, lo yayanshu they won't get killed. They won't have to pay because you do have a kavanah with Rabbi Minei. Shvarim are different. Even if the shvarim at kavanah l'isha atzma, nevertheless they aren't you because again there's no chiyav misa. So Ibazai, you would have thought that in fact a shar should be mechuyev in the mevlados. For that, because of Rechmana, Baal Asharnaki the Ptiri. So really, all we're doing here in this Gemara is we're trying to say anoshim v'lo shvarim. But the question is, Lagabi, what prat is it anoshim v'lo shvarim? So we're twisting ourselves into different positions to find a case where the anoshim v'lo shvarim would tell us that he's chayiv, and therefore we need the Baal Shanaki to say that it's potter. Because in a lot of the twists, the anoshim v'lo shvarim would say that it's taka potter. So we needed a way to manipulate it so that the anoshim v'lo shvarim should include that it's chayiv. And that was the final thing that the Gemara said here, is by humans, by a person who kills, we say afagav sheish ya'ashem be'isha yayanshu, but kinis chavnu lishas malo yayanshu. by a person, if he had kavanah to kill the lady, then he's chayiv misa, and therefore he's potter for vlodos. But shvarim would be chayiv for vlodos in that same case because of Rachmana Bala Shanaki Diptir. And all this is not applicable to the question of boishas. So therefore, it's only a question of needing Bala Shanaki to tell us that the owner of the ox is potter and paying the dmei vlodos. Zachein, he also Rab Chagai Midoraima, when Rab Chagai came from the Dorim, also he came, he brought a Mishnah with him, Kavaseder of Ada Bar Ava, to learn it this way. That the Havamina was that you would be mechuyev, the diak that you would make from the case of Asain would be mechayev ashar with mevlodos all the time. And that's why it has to say Bal Sharnok. So what does this mean? V'chein ki asar Rab Chagai Midoraima. You have coming from the east, coming from the west, from Bava to Yisrael. What is this Dorim? I'm not sure if I have a Marit Chiyas, but I need to find a Marit Chiyas. It's not my Gemara. I have one nearby. The very interesting Marit Chiyas here. I don't have one in this blue Gemara. The old Gemara should have them.
Still in the bottom.
What? Where is it over there? Oh, so the article also. So now I know where Rabbi Rosen got it from. So Maharitz Chiyas, let's see where it is. Usually you have it in the back of the Mishnah, back of me. Usually Maharitz Chiyas will be in the back of the Gemara, no? When I was growing up, and I was in Shiva, all Gemuras had it. Marim Shif. And once when they have that goes for Chedushin, they usually throw out the Maharitz Chiyas. The goes for Chedushin messes up. There's too new of a Gemara.
It's going to be in the Agunas V'Chadish.
You think they'll bring it down? Okay, we'll see in a second. We will see in a second. No, he doesn't see it. He doesn't speak the Mark case. Oh, here it is. Oh, no, it is. You're right. He does say it. You're right. Chaim's right. Okay, so let me read it inside over here. Ki asa Rab Chagai Midoraima, I see Masnisa biyadai. Can you see it on the screen? What is known base near a beer? Harbor Pa'amam B'Shas, many times in Shas, Matzinu Inyan Doraima. You find someone came from the south. But Shvich Lafarish, what is this? Hina Yedua, the Hain B'Meshach Beis Bay Sheni, Hain Achar Churban, during the second Beis HaMikdash, and after the Churban, Hoisa Torah Matsuya Be'eretz HaTzvi, B'Yerushalayim. Where was the epicenter of Torah? In Yerushalayim, in Lishkas Hagazis, Shemisham Hayra Yoitzis L'Chol Ha'olam. After that, the Yachach B'Yavna, which was the Moshe Nasiim, Shushalta, the descendants, the hill of Gamliel Zakim. V'rak Achakach, and only after that, Bizman, the Nachas Rav LeBavel, when Rav already relocated from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Rabu Shama HaYeshiva. So now the Torah world started moving to Babel, and that's where the yeshivas were. Until the end of the period of the Goinim, the epicenter of Torah was in Babel. So that was like the end of the first century, I would say. No? Because the Rishonim started in like the 1200s. So that was at the end of the first century. I'm sorry?
Oh, Rasha was still in 10.
10, okay. So Hine Amrina, Yehuda ben Zetori Pirish Mina Chachamim. Yehuda ben Zetori left. He cut himself off from the Chachamim. The Gemara says in Pesachim. The Yoshev Loi B'Darim. Why did he separated himself from everybody? So where would Darim be? I guess it would be in Africa. He moved away from everybody. Why did he move away from the Torah belt? The Svirle Chagiga Doicha Shabbos. He held Chagiga was Doicha Shabbos, and the problem is that Chagiga is Doicha Shabbos. So then he would have to bring a Chagiga on Shabbos, and the problem is that they wouldn't let him because the Rav Chacham Paskin Chagiga is not Doicha Shabbos. So he moved far away so that he should be considered B'derech Rechaika, and therefore he wasn't Muchayiv to bring it. So that's why he moved to Dorim. Makshina Shasham. Banan time of the Prushim, Nekim and Nigmar, what we should learn, people who are Parish Rashi, have Parshim in Achachma. He was partial from the Chachamim because the Chachamim said that you shouldn't bring a chigig on Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda zeh kava sham yeshiva gedola lilmoid hatalmidim. He said, you know what? I'm making my own yeshiva. I don't like how they paskin. I'm starting my own yeshiva. And these people who lived in the south, who had their own mahalach, and they moved away because they didn't want to listen to the Chachamim hated them. So there was a whole new community that moved south that was and they moved south because they were parish from the Chachamim. Fine, Yushami Psachim, Rosh Perek Makom Shahagu, Rab Shamloy, Asala Kamed, Rabbi Yehuda, Alfan Agada, Amalei Misaris Biyadi, Shein Moshkan Agada, Loyla Bavloyim, Loyla Droimim, Neshem Gase Ruach and Mute Torah. They're better than everybody else. They think they know learn better, so they go and open up their own yeshivas. The ayin Niska Kayoytibza, Al-Lud, Kilud Hayo Be'eretz Yehuda, Dorim Yerushalayim. So these were all these places where people who were parish from the Chachamim, who argued on the Chachamim, they went and opened their own yeshivas. V'yishalmi perakam nesnadun overhedya ein ma'avin ashana belud m'teishem gasei ruach u'me'ute Torah einsham. Fine, say there are doris oisrap some loy. V'nei mesaper hagemor kan af al pishes nuim hoyu haderoimim ve'enei chachamim ve'enei chachmei Bavel l'chachmei Eretz Yisrael v'chol zois as a toiv kiblu mehen. When the Dorim yeshivas came up with something good, they were makabel it anyway. V'siyau min braysa shuva b'darim, and if they needed a riot to halacha, they would actually rely, even if it came from darim. Beprachim matina b'yishalmi perek haroya Rabbi Yechon halach miyavid shalom b'dreima hainu lekarves achama midarim shohayu meruchakim adkon. So I guess at a certain point they wanted to get these chachamim from the darim to move back and join in with the rest of Klal Yisrael. Right? No, they just had a different sheet. It's halacha. So therefore, here the Gemara brings a raya from Droima. Also, so it's not shot they were so disregarded that if you would bring a raya from them, they'd say, that they accepted. So they were still chashuv with Talmidacham. Tanya Idach. Now we're going to have another Baal Ashar Naki because we're looking for all these different drushes of what we learned from Baal Ashar Naki. Baal Ashar Naki Naki midmei evet. You don't pay for the Dmei Evet. So normally, if you kill someone's Evet, you pay Shloshim Shalavet. Here he says Naki midmei Evet. That's who said this? This is what Rabbi Kiva says, right? Rabbi Kiva said Naki midmei Evet. Break the Gemara, when Rabbi Yosy Lili decided to say Naki midmei Vlados, what did Rabbi Kiva say? Or he said Naki Mechatze Kofer, right? When Rabbi Yosy Lili said Naki Mechatze Kofer, Rabbi Kiva didn't like it. You know why? Because Rabbi Kiva told him, what do you mean Naki Mechatze Kofer? What do I need a pasuk to tell me that I'm Naki Mechatze Kofer? The animal's getting killed in Bez. Tell him to go to Bez and collect from the animal, because you only collect Migufa by a time. So Ibazoi, why doesn't Rabbi Kiva ask the same question on himself? Why do I need a pasuk to say Naki Midmei Vlados if the animal's getting killed with a short time? Let him say his own teretz that he's his own kasha that he has from Rabbi Yosy Glili. Let him tell it right to himself. The tashlumin would be paid migufay. And then go to Bezdin, who's going to kill this animal and collect it from them. So I'll call upon them, Rabbi Kiva, your own kasha that you asked Rabbi Yosy Glili applies equally to what you said. Amar Rab Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. You know what the case is? It's kishakadam bailav shachtoi. And Rashi says kodim shenigmar dinoi. So before it was condemned as a shar haniskal, a shar that needs to be killed, the bailam shechted it. So therefore, it never became a shar haniskal, and therefore you would be able to collect from it the may evet kamash malon ubala shar naki. He doesn't have to pay the may evet. Mal the tema lishtalamine kamash malon that you don't pay. Why don't you pay? Hoyu levar katalahu bibal. This animal should have been killed if Bezdin would have been able to paskin upon it. So therefore, mal the tema lishtalamine. You might think you should have to pay for me. You don't pay it. So therefore, there is no chiyuv to pay the may eved from a shar niskal, even though Bezdin didn't pass on it as a shar niskal until it got shechted. Frank the Gemara, the same way Rabbi Kiva avoids this kasha, his own kasha, Rabbi Eliezer nami kishakadam v'shachtai. Rabbi Eliezer, he was attacked by Rabbi Kiva, and Rabbi Kiva asked him on Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis, if it's only migufay, why do I need a pasuk to say you're part of chatzi kofer? Have you lebezim vishalom lach? So Rabbi Elazar says that's what you think. You think I'm saying it in a case where it's going to get killed. I'm talking about a case where it wasn't going to get killed, and there was two different options. Either it was ali de atzmoy, or it was the schavin lahargas to beima vargas adam. So Rabbi Elazar has different svaras. But why didn't Rabbi Elazar say the same teretz over here? A very simple teretz. It's speaking where it was kadam v'shachtay. So Zok to Gemara. Why didn't Rabbi Elazar say that there? Amalach, Hasamhud in the Schaven Largas of Hema, Adam. I like my teretz better. Rabbi Elazar teretz is better. There's a case where the Schaven Largas of Hema, Adam, the Shur Lav Barkatalu. This is a Shur that doesn't even have a Chiv Misa. Klal, right? So there's a bigger svar to suggest that if the Shur is not Chayiv Misa at all, that there should be a Chiv Kofer. So Gedat Chamina on the Chayiv, because the Lamaisi, there's no Chiv Misa on this shore at all, because it was the Schaven Largas of Hema, Vargas Adam. Therefore, it's there you need a pasuk to say that you don't have a Chiv Chatzi Koif. Aval Hacha. But in the case that Rabbi Kiva wants to say, that Be'etzim did something that it should be Chayiv Misa for. It's just that the Bailam quickly shechted it before Bezin Kapaskin, to make her Bakatalu. However, Be'etzim is a Bakatalu. It did do something that would get it Misa. So there, maybe I hold l'tzarech kra avagav the shachli. Maybe you don't need a pasuk to say that that's potter, even though you shachted it, because Lamaisa the ox did something that it should have been mechuyev misa. Fact the Gemara Rabbi Kiva nami vade hachiyava. So Rabbi Kiva also should have not said his teretz. He should have said Rabbi Yosy's teretz, Rabbi Elazar's teretz. Amar Abasi, Zok Abasi, Hi Milsa. The following thing that I'm about to tell you. Mipi the Gava Rabba Shemili. I heard it from a Gava Rabba. We won't get in right now to what a Gava Rabba is, but I heard it from a Gava Rabba. Umani Rabbi Yosy Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Yosy was a Gava Rabba, and he told us what Rabbi Kiva does with his kasha. Right? We started it off with V'nema Rabbi Kiva l'nafshei. You, Rabbi Kiva, why do you need the Bala Sharnaki to tell you that a behemoth that kills the Bailam don't have to pay the Shloshim Shaleved? Let me tell you why you don't have a taina that it's meguvay. So if it's meguvay, if it's a time, if it's meguvay, an animal's getting killed, of course you don't pay shloshim shalavet. Teretz is Rabbi Yosy told us why I might think you pay. So Kedai Dechamina, Hayel B'Amar Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva said Allah. Av tam shechaval ba'adam mishalim b'moisar nezek shalim. Rabbi Kiva holds that if a tam hurts a person and a person hurts a tam, so they hurt each other, so whatever greater damage, you look at the damage the person did to the ox, you look at the damage the ox did to the person, the difference, if the animal did more damage, he pays nezek shalim. Meaning you pay nezek shalim even a tam. So Rabbi Kiva says a halacha that a shor tam that damages a person doesn't pay migufay. A shor tam that damages a person pays nezek shalim, pays the payment of a muad. So therefore, mishtalim nami de me'eved me'aliyah. The Baal Rabbi Kiva holds that when you talk about damaging a person, so you have this ox that damaged an eved, it's treated like a muad. If it's treated like a muad, then the whole kasha of halayatma in mishtalim el begufa eviyelu bezin v'shalom loch, that whole tiny doesn't apply, because it's whenever an animal is damaging a person, it's automatically treated like a muad. Therefore, you need to pass a kasher rachmana bala sharnuk. So now it's pashat. When you're damaging a person, Rabbi Kiva holds that there's no din migufay. That's why Rabbi Kiva is different. The reason why Rabbi Kiva didn't ask the same kasha on himself that he asked in Rabbi Eliezer, because he has a shittas yachid. His own shita is that when an animal damages a person, he pays nezek shalim even a tam. The problem is v'tavrei Rabbi Kiva ligizi say. Rabbi Kiva broke his shita because he said something that changes everything. And as Rashi says, Dashmini behedya, he told us beferish the ein mishtalim elam migufay. Yes, Rabbi Yehuda does say that if a tam damages a person, you pay nezek shalim. But it doesn't mean it's like a regular muad. Even in nezek shalim that it only pays migufay. So even though it's paying the full damage that it hurt a person, the liability of the owner is still limited to the value of the ox. As Rashi says, Dashmini behedya the mishtalim elam migufay. Vakati ikal meimer, you still have the same kasha. Have you a little bit? So your teretz Rabbi Yosy doesn't help me, because even though when an animal stoises, when a tam stoises a person, you pay nezek shalom, but it's vitamin gufay. So you still have the same time to have a yula bezin. The Tanya of Akiva Omer, Yochel Yishalom in the Aliyah, you might have thought that even though a tam is paying nezek shalom when it damages a person, it also pays min Aliyah. Talmud Leimer Kamishpat Hazeh Yasaloi. It's you pay like this mishpat, meaning like a tam. Migufay mishalim, mishalim min Aliyah. So we're back to where we started from. Rabbi Akiva needs a teretz, so we need to figure out what's the teretz in Rabbi Akiva. Elam Rabbi Isra. So Kedai Dechamina. The reason why any other kasha I would ask you, like the kasha that I asked Rabbi Eliezer, is a good kasha. Have you the best? And since you only pay me gufa, and this animal is getting killed, there should be no chiv. So why do I need a pasuk of a bala sharnaki? Tell me that it's potter. It's migufa anyway. But I would have thought that the shloishim shal eved, she should pay anyway, even though there's a taina that you pay me gufa, and the animal is getting killed. There's still a svara why the shloshim shalevet should be paid. Why? You find that the payment of shloshim shalevet is more severe, more chomer than the payment of damages to a ben chayrin. Why? Sheben chayrin yafas sela noisen sela. Shloshim noisen shloshim. If the person was damaged, a sela, you pay a sela. We're talking about a person getting killed. So if the person that got killed was a sela, you'd pay the sela. And if the person that got killed was worth shloshim, you pay shloshim. But the evet yafas sela noisen shloshim. The halacha is the evet yafas sela noisen shloshim. An evet, it's a knas. So therefore, no matter how much the evet is worth, you pay a shloshim. So you see, there's a big chumrah in shloshim shem evet. So if about there's a big chumrah in shloshim shel evet, maybe mishtalim nami demei evet min haliyah. Maybe when a tam kills an evet, he should pay min aliyah, and therefore, even though this tam is getting killed in Bezdin, the chiyuv of the bayim should still be to pay the shloshim shel evet, because shloshim shel evet is unique. Therefore, because of rechmona bala sharnati. And this is now pshat in Rabbi Akiva. It's all because we thought that shloshim shel evet would be more chamer. Tanya Kavasei, the Rava. We had a brisa that supports Rava's thought that the reason why Rabbi Akiva felt you needed a pasuk of bala sharnaki to pater a short time that killed with evet from shloshim is because we thought the shloshim shel evet is unique because it has a chumrah over everything else that you pay more than the value of the evet. What does the brisa say? Bala sharnaki. Rabbi Akiva omer noki midmei evet. Frank the brisa of aloydinu. Why do I need a pasuk? It's a pasuk misvara. Hoil the chayiv evet. The bought your chayiv to pay if you damage an evet. The chayiv ben chayrin. Maybe I should say, Mark is chayiv ben chayrin. Chalaktava, you made a chiluk ben tam lemuid that a tam would be potter and the mood would be chayiv. Afki shechayiv ve'eved nechlak boy ben tam lemuid. Maybe there should be a chiluk between tam and mood. That's number one. The oid kal v'chaymer uma ben chayrin shenoisen kol shavyai. By ben chayrin, you pay the full value of the ben chayrin. Nevertheless, chalakta boy ben tam lemuid. Eved, which is more kuladik. She'ein noisen ela shloshim. So before we were looking at how Eved is more chomer because you'll pay shloshim even though it's only worth a selah. Now we're looking from the other perspective. It's a kula because even if the guy's worth 1,000 shkolim, you only pay 30 shkolim. So ein odin shenachlek ben tam lemud. So minas svara avad atam shouldn't pay the mei Eved of shloshim shkolim. And that he answers loy machmireni be'Eved loy machmireni be'Eved yoser bi ben chayrin. I'll be more machmor by Eved than a ben chayrin. She ben chayrin yofes sela noisin sela and shloshim noisin shloshim. A ben chayrin, if it's worth less than shloshim, you pay what it's worth, and if it's worth shloshim, then you pay shloshim. But the Eved, even if it's only yofes sela, you'll still be noisin shloshim. So we consider, or Bekiva considers, an Eved more chomer than a ben chayrin, and therefore yachol yechayiv. Maybe then a shar tam that kills an Eved should be chayiv to pay the shloshim shloim of an Eved. Tamalami balashar noki midmei Eved. Okay, so halacha lemaisa, we've had a whole bunch of different drushes to learn out of balashar noki. Right? At first the Gemara had me to use balashar noki to tell you Isra no. The Gemara abandoned that because we ended up knowing the Isra no from Lo Yoichal. So it says Sakal Yisakal Ashar. That's how we know there's an Isra Chila. And then it says from there we learn Isra Noah, and we also learn that the animals also, even though you shechted it, and Balashar Naki, we have a whole array of halachas to learn from it. Either Naki Mechatzi Koifer we had, or we had Naki Mevladois, or we had Naki from the Shloshim Shalevet. So those were all the different drushes that we ended up having from Balashar Naki. So the Gemara said, the Gemara asked originally, if you don't use Balashar Naki to say it's Asher Bano, what are you going to use it for? The Gemara says, don't worry, we'll have plenty of options of what to use Balashar Naki for, which we are using it for. Sorry? Right. So I think it's a machlokes what you use it for. I think that's how we learn. Yeah. But a kalpanim, we have a whole array of options of what Balashar Naki. But either way, Balashar Naki is not being used to tell you anything about Ashar Nisko. It's being used to tell you about something completely different, like the Meiboishis, which the Gemara retracted from. The Mevladosh, well, Chatzi Koifer is the only thing that was negay mamish in house. Okay, Zok the Gemara Vash.
Is low whatever. Does he not hold from what Rebbe Yosy Glili?
Oh, I'm happy you brought that up. So let's go back to this last brisa that we quoted from Rebbe Kiva. And if you remember, Rebbe Yosy Glili used the pasuk of a Balashar Naki to tell us. Rebbe Yosy Glili used the Balashar Naki to tell us that a Balashar Naki from Chatzi Koifer. That means a muad will pay Koifer, and the tam does not pay Chatzi Koifer. Rebbe Yosy Glili was first. I'm sorry, Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar was talking about Chatzi Koifer. I'm sorry, Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar said that we use Balashar Naki to tell me that he doesn't pay Chatzi Koifer, right? So let's have a look at what Rebbe Kiva says over here. It says over here, Naki mit be'eved v'alo yidinu hoyel v'chayiv ve'eved v'chayiv v'chorin makash v'chayiv v'chorin chalakta boy v'intam lemud. So you see clearly he does hold like Rebbe Eliezer. He must hold like Rebbe Eliezer because he holds that you make a chiluk between tam and mud, that a tam pays, tam does not pay Chatzi Koifer and the mud pays Chatzi Koifer. But Toysus might say a little differently. Let me see Toysus here. Makash Chayiv ben Chorin Chalakta ben Tam Lamud. There is a chiluk. Braisazu Muchacha. This brisa proves to us the Rabbi Kiva loy kibel tshuva de Rabbi Lazar. He didn't keep Rabbi Lazar's tshuva. Oh, I know why. Because Rabbi Lazar needed a Balashar Naki for it. Clearly, Rabbi Kiva is using a Balashar Naki to tell us about Shloshim Shalevet. So he doesn't notice from a Balashar Naki like Rabbi Eliezer. So clearly, he didn't accept Rabbi Eliezer tshuva. So Ladosh Rabbi Kiva Naki Mechatzi Koifer, Hafilu Hafi Poiter Kan Betam. So you see, Rabbi Kiva agrees to Rabbi Eliezer halacha that a tam is poiter from Chatzi Koifer, but he definitely does not learn it from a Balashar Naki, because here in this very brisa, he's using a Balashar Naki to tell you that he's poiter from the Shloshim Shalevet. Behind Mishum the Kilei Mechayiv Skila, she did the poiter B'Koifer. The svar of Rabbi Kiva would be that unless the animal is actually Chayiv Skila, it would not be poiter. It would not pay Koifer. Okay, let's see the Gemara weiter. Tanu Rabbanan. The Hamish Isha Isha. So the pasuk says, let's have a look over here. The Chiyigach Shoris Isha Isha V'Meis Tzak Yisak Lashar V'Mshar Nagachu B'Tmel Shilshim V'Hud B'Vala V'Lo Yishmanu V'Hamish Isha Isha. So the problem is we're in the same parasha over here, right? This pasuk of V'Mshar Nagachu is directly after this pasuk. So at the beginning of the parasha, the Torah makes it very clear. The Chiyigach Shar Es Isha Isha. So we know we're talking about an Isha and Isha. So why, when the Torah continues with the story of Mshar Nagachu, the Torah says V'Hamish Isha Isha. I mean, that's what this whole parsha is talking about. So the second V'Hamish Isha Isha is redundant. So Zok the Heilige Gemara. V'Hamish Isha Isha. Amar B'Kiva. V'Chima Bazel Lamdein. What is this extra V'Hamish Isha Isha telling us? Im L'Chayiv Ali Isha Kish. If it's to tell you that you're Chayiv the same koifer if a woman gets killed, just as if a man gets killed, Harei Kvar Nemar, we know that from the beginning of the parsha. So we already know an Isha is included here. It must be to compare an Isha to an Ish. Just like an Ish, he gets killed. There's Kaifer paid. So who does the Kaifer get paid to? It gets paid to his Yarshim, his next of kin. Af Isha, so to a woman, if she gets killed, Nizakel Yarshaha. The Nizikin, the Kaifer for the woman doesn't get paid to her husband. It gets paid to her family, either her children or her father. Frank the Gemara, Rabbi Kiva lo yaris labal. Does Rabbi Kiva hold that the Baal doesn't yarshin his wife? Vatanya the yarish I saw mikan shabal yarish is Rabbi Kiva. We know that a husband yarshins his wife. So if a husband yarshins his wife, why is it that he won't get the kofer? Why does the kofer not get paid to him? Amar Shlokish lo yamar ela b'kofer. Everything else that if a wife dies, the husband yarshins. The only thing that the husband doesn't get from the wife is kofer. Why? The chiyuv to pay only comes lachamisa, and the halacha is a baal is only yorish his wife things that she owns now. If she yarsh, let's say after his wife dies, her father dies, and now she yarshins her father, that the husband would have no shaykhs. The husband only gets things that are actually in her possession at the time of death. Pavali roy. It's called royu because it didn't come in her lifetime; it only came after her death. My time. How do we know that the Baal doesn't take correct muchzak? Because Amar Kra, the Hamish ish or isha, hashor yisakel, the gambol of Yumas. After all that, after the isha is dead already, then in koifer yusha salah. So clearly, the chiyuv koifer only comes after mita. It's considered royu, and therefore the husband is not yarshit. So you're telling me, let's say she got injured, so she's still alive. There you're telling me the husband would yarshin her. If that's so, that if she got injured, the husband would get that. So she got injured, and then she died, and then the guy's coming to Bezdin to pay, right? So there you're saying that the chiyuv comes while she's alive. Are you telling me there he would get to keep it? With the zikin like Amr Abakiva Vatanya, he goes to Isha, the Yosy Yilada, Nois and Nezek V'Tzar Isha. The Nezek and Tzar is given to the Isha, Udmei V'Ladois LeBaal, and the Dmei V'Ladois go to the Baal. That we know. But Ein HaBaal, what if the Baal died? Noisein Liyarshav, the Dmei V'Ladois would go to the Yarshim of the husband. And here's the key point. But Ein Isha, what if the woman died? So Noisenis Liyarshav, it goes to her Yarshim. So you see that it's not only a didn't koifer, which only is triggered after her death, even the zaken that was triggered while she was alive, you still pay to her Yarshim. And you don't say that the husband dashes it. What about Haisa Shivcha v'Nishtachara? Meaning she's a Giyaris, she has no relatives. Oy Giyaris, or she's a Giyaris, so once again she has no relatives. Then Zacha, then the husband can get it. So the problem is, you see clearly that it's not Dafka didn't koifer. You see, even something that was koidem misa, the husband won't be able to get. A maraba begrusha, that's speaking where she's a grusha. So krashi begrusha askinan mishamachi noishel yasheh shegirsha achar chavala. Her husband divorced her, so now he doesn't yash her anymore, and that's why it says that it goes to yasheh. But about if she's still married, about the husband yashes her. For nizakin, it's just koifer that's different. The chinamar abnachim begrusha. Frekdemar amri grusha nami. Tifloi b'dmei v'lados. Frank the Gemara, by a grusha, she should get to made v'lados. Look Rashi, look Tosfos. The kasol kedaitach deloi ikri bal ha'isha ela kashisha tachta. Vibalt, she's not married to him anymore. So right, speaking by a grusha, so then why does he get the full dmei v'lados? Let her get some of the dmei v'lados because she's not married to him anymore. So she should also have a chelik of the Dmei V'Lados. Why does the Brisa say that all of the Dmei V'Lados go to the husband? Amar Papa, I'll tell you why. Because a Torah zachsut Dmei V'Lados labal, the Torah gives the Dmei V'Lados always exclusively to the Baal. Afilu Baal nus. Even if someone had znus with a woman and she became pregnant, he's not even married to her. He was never married to her. But if the V'Lados get damaged, the father is entitled to the full Dmei V'Lados. It has nothing to do with married or not married. My timer, Amr Kra, the pasuk says, "Kasher Yosis alav Baal Isha." So Baal Isha means Dr. Rashi a boyal akapit. The boyal, the person who's the father of the children, he's entitled to the Dmei V'Lados. In fact, the Gemara, but
maybe the reason is because the children are his kids.
Yeah, that's why. In fact, v'nukmei l'rabba, v'nukmei l'rabba kagoin shagavu mois. Why don't you say, according to Rabbah, Zakrachi Lo Mahula Rabbah, Ula Rab Nachman, look with the Gerusha, right? We learned just at the top of the Amid.
He doesn't get it.
But no, by Gerusha, he gets to the Mevlodos. He doesn't get the Tsar and Nezek.
Nezek went on her.
The Tsar and Nezek, he doesn't yarshin from her. But the Mevlodos, he always gets. If you look at the bottom of Ambeis, it says, Noisin nezek v'tzar leisha udmei vlodesh labal. You give his chelik, which is the mevlodesh liyarsha. In a isha, then you give her. Sorry,
Give many.
you don't give who anything.
Mevlodes, Baal.
If he's not alive,
In Habal.
it ain't about if the husband's dead.
So we answered.
No, it's liyarsha.
We explained that it's talking about a grusha.
No, the question is, Eino Isha Noisenis Liyarsha. If the wife dies, why do you give it to the Yarshim? Why doesn't her husband get it? Why doesn't her husband Yarshin the Nezek and the Tsar?
Right.
That's the question. So the Gemara says the reason why it doesn't the Yarshin the Nezek and the Tsar because he divorced her.
Mevlodes does go.
The always is. Right. I forget the Gemara asked if he divorced her, so then why does he get to keep all of the Mevlodes? Let her get to keep some of the Mevlodes. Because they're divorced. If they're married, the male goes to him. But if they're not married, maybe she's also have a chelik in the Mevlodes. On that, the Gemara brings a pasuk to tell you that the Mevlodes exclusively are always given to the father. It's a man's world. Frank the Gemara. So Reb Nachman and Rabbah said it was speaking by Grusha. And that's how he explained why the Nizakin doesn't go to the husband. Frank the Gemara, why don't you say, what does that mean? There's a question of what's considered Royu and Muksuk. So where else is Royu and Muksuk relevant to? It's also relevant to a Bechor gets Pishnayim. A Bechor gets only Pishnayim from something that's in this state now. If someone pays up the father after the death, that's split equally amongst all the brothers. So basically, anything that a Bechor would get Pishnayim of, a husband would Yashin from his wife. If it's something that came later after the death of the person they're Yashining, then the Bechor doesn't get Pishnayim and the husband wouldn't Yashin from his wife. So there's a Shaila when there's a collection made from an old Choy. So it wasn't there, the father died and there was money owing. Depending on what he collected, there's a machlokes Rabbi and Reb Nachman, if that's considered as if it was already in the estate of the deceased. So v'nukla Rabbi kagoyin shagavu mois, and mois Rabbi holds if it's karka that they're a goyva, we say that karka always was in the estate because there was a shibud on it. But if he collected money, that's not considered in the estate. So therefore, maybe say the same thing over here. The reason why it goes to Yarsha and it doesn't go to him is because when it was paid after the death, it was paid in cash. That cash never was part of the estate. Oh, Reb Nachman should go to karka. Reb Nachman has the opposite shita. He holds that if the father was owed money, if it was paid back in cash, we consider that since that money was owed before, that it's as if it was already in the estate, and the Bechor would get Pishnai. But if they got karka is a new thing, because when the father lent money, he lent cash. He got back karka. That's a different thing. So basically, there's a machlokes Reb Nachman and the Rabbah. What you say is considered as if it was always in the estate. Is it cash, which Reb Nachman says it was always in the estate, or is it property, which Rabbah says was always considered in the estate? Domer Rabbah gavu karka yeshloi. If they collected karka for a chayv that was owed to the father, yeshloi the chayv will get pishnaim. So that karka, if Pivalta was meshubah to pay back the loan, we'll say it's as if it was always in the father's estate when the father died. But Kavamoy say, look, that's new money that was not in the father's estate. Reb Nachman took the opposite opinion. Reb Nachman Amar Kavamoy yeshloi, because if I gave him money and he paid me back money, we'll say it's as if that's the original money that was always in the estate. But gavu karka ain't like, because karka is a new acquisition to the estate. So why didn't Rabbah and Reb Nachman answer in that fashion that the chayiv for the zikin was paid either with karka or with mois, and then they wouldn't have had to come out to the kimta? They were speaking about a grusha. So Amri Hanamili Levnei Ma'rava Aliba Derabanan Kika Amar Hacha Karebi. Their whole machlokes was according to the Bnei Ma'rava, according to the Rabbanon. Rebbe argues on this whole thing. And if we see Rashi says, Aliba Bnei Ma'rava, the Sholchu, they said, Bechor Noitel Pishnayim, B'milva, V'loi B'ribis. The Bnei Ma'rava holds that a Bechor takes Pishnayim on a milva that's paid back, but not on the ribis. V'ukimna Aliba the Rabbanon, and we said that's following the sheet of the Rabbanon, the Pligil of the Rebbe. The Rabbanon argue on Rebbe. The Army, the Rabbanon say, Ein Bechor Noitel Pishnayim, B'shvach, Sheshavchu Nechosim, Lacham Yisaviyed. The Bechor only takes Pishnayim of the actual assets that are there, B'shas Misa, but if the assets improve, like ribis comes in, that's not something that the Bechor takes Pishnayim. The Rebbe, according to Rebbe, Afilu B'ribis Nami Shakal Pishnayim. According to Rebbe, anything that comes to the state even later will also be included in the Pishnayim of the Bechor. The Shvach Edem Amelu, because it's Shvach Edem Amela. or Pershua, Rabba Rab Nachman, and Rabba and Rab Nachman explained Lav the Bnei Marava. According to the Bnei Marava, the Amrila Rabbanan B'char Noitel B'Shnayim B'Milva Mar Begavu Mois Mar Begavu Karka. They were discussing the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan who holds that a Bechor does take B'Shnayim in a Milva. That's where they have a discussion. That's the Rabbanan Shita. That's where this whole discussion between Rabba and Rab Nachman is. But according to Rebbe, he holds you always take B'Shnayim even if it comes later. So this whole Shiloh won't be relevant. So no matter what you paid with, whether you paid with Karka or whether you paid with Mois, according to Rebbe, regardless, it's considered part of the Yerusha. So according to Rebbe, the only way to explain why the husband doesn't yarshin it is by saying it's speaking about a Gerusha. Okay, Gavalk will stop her and Bezram will be Mamshech tomorrow. So these are very technical Gemaras. We should only understand them. We should never have to actually experience them. They should be academic.